We are in interview mode today. Nice to be talking with you again. I have a new friend of mine, Aaron Parker, with me today. Say hello, Aaron.
Hi, how you doing?
We are doing good. And you know, when we do these interviews, I'm looking for two things. I think I've mentioned this before. I want to reiterate it. I'm looking for a person to have a positive experience when they have the interview with me. I don't want it to be traumatic for them. I want them to enjoy it. So enjoy yourself, Aaron. That's an
All
order.
right, I will do my best. I will do my
And then the
best.
second thing is obviously I want it to be encouraging and interesting to those of us that are watching the interview that like, JWStruggle and that are interested in the ex-JW community, how people have escaped, what their story is, how they woke up to TTATT, the truth about the truth, things like that. So again, Aaron, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to just share your story.
Absolutely. It's honestly, it's my pleasure to be here. I came across your channel a little while ago. I had to watch every video, and it was part of this phase in realizing, after being out, I've been out 12 years now, that I wasn't alone out here. I never did any research, even though I did get out. I managed to get away, and it was still one of those things where I always kind of, in the back of my mind, defended it, even openly, early on, being out early. It was one of the things that I kind of defended, just as a ingrained thing. I was raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I was homeschooled, so there was never any balance. It was always very one-sided, very, this is what you're going to do. And my life, from as long as I can remember, was pre-planned from my mother. I mean, it was just, this is what you're going to do, this is where you're going to go, and this is how you're going to get there. And it was just one of those things where I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm going to do this now. So, yeah, to me it doesn't seem very interesting, but I hope to make it interesting for everybody that's here. So, and I appreciate the time very much. So,
All right. Well, as you mentioned, Aaron, you have been away for 12 or out for 12 years. You got away clean, and you're living your life. You've got a happy family. You've got a good career, all that stuff. But some of the things that stood out that made me want to interview you was the circumstances around your judicial committee and how you woke up at a young age, things like that. Oh, before I forget, please let me give a shout out to Christian Christian Freedom, awesome guy. He's got a great Facebook page. He sent me a message and he said, "You must interview Aaron Parker." That's all he sent me. It was like one line. "You must interview this man." And so then I contacted you and started to hear some of your story, and I thought, wow, he's right. I must interview this man. So I appreciate him pushing you in my direction and hearing some of your story through the Facebook groups. But the thing, Aaron, is you were brought up around the truth, but yet your dad, he was a witness, but he was not a witness. Can you explain that to me?
yeah, my dad, I guess he came in through my grandmother. Obviously, I think he was 7 or 8 years old. I'm not 100% sure. So he remembers Christmas. I remember him talking about it. And my mother would very quickly shut him up about that. And it was never really a big deal. He would always say things to us, me and my brothers. There's 5 kids in my family. I'm the oldest of 5. He would always tell us things like, you need to think for yourself. Make sure before you make a decision it's really what you want to do. So growing up, I always heard those things. Never really putting together until I became an adult that he was really saying, you really need to pay attention and look around because, maybe this isn't what you think. He always worked a lot, and I always thought it was funny that his late days were usually on Thursdays and Tuesdays, which were book study days and which were theocratic ministry school days. And he always came for us to give talks, but I never put that together. So he did it, he got married, had kids, and, maybe as a young adult decided, okay, this is horrible, but my dad's whole universe revolved around us kids. He would come home after working 12 hours and he'd play football with us until it was pitch black. And that's just how it was growing up. I mean, it was great. So he would always say things like that. It wasn't until I got older and started to kind of realize this whole thing that I understood really what he was telling us, without actually saying it. So yeah, I mean, really, my dad is the biggest influence in my entire universe. Not only being a good person, I mean, and I was a straight A witness, man. I never did any drugs. I've never even smoked weed ever my entire life, which they thought I was lying when I got to the military, and we'll get to that. Never really been drunk. I don't really drink that much. It's just, I don't really care for it. Everybody, what, are you really religious? On the contrary, but it's one of those things where we all just kind of towed the line, and my dad was really the leader there. And I wish maybe I'd have woke up a little sooner, but you do what you do. So yeah, he was, definitely the biggest influence in my life. Absolutely.
That is beautiful, and I love. There's two or three things that just leap out at me from listening to you talk about your dad. One is the fact that he taught you critical thinking. He taught you think before you leap. He taught you to question maybe, or to be skeptical. And I can say my dad was the same way. He was a skeptical person. He would question things. He wouldn't just believe everything he heard, and he did impart that to me. And I would say that was probably part of what helped me to finally, of course, it took me an extra 20 years longer than you to figure it out and get out. So count your lucky stars, young man, for getting out as early as you did. But
yeah.
But the point is you had a good dad, you had a hands-on, active dad, and you also mentioned to me that he went against the witness grain when it came to sports, that he had you and your siblings involved in sports, which again, how many studies you have to do to know that it's good for kids to learn teamwork, to learn, competitiveness, goals, all those things, that witness kids basically miss out on all of that. And learn how to cope with different environments and all those different things. So you were in sports, your dad had you questioning things, and
Yep.
then but you were still a good witness, and you didn't break the rules, and you followed the rules, right?
Oh man, yeah. There was no rules broken ever. I feared what my mother would do. The elders. I really never feared them. I can't say that they never really liked us, but I was definitely never in a clique. None of us were growing up, and I know from watching every single person that I sit on the other side of this computer screen to, it talks about the cliques, and my experience is no different. The kids that were my age were getting to handle the mics before me. They were getting groomed to be ministerial servants before me. And of course, they were all elders' kids. They were in bands, and I played musical instruments, and I loved that. I never got invited to go over there. All the same stuff. It's not new from this world, and it was just like, okay, this is what it is. So I thought, as any young person would, I'm not doing enough. There's something that I'm not doing. So then I said, okay, well, what can I do? So I got baptized. To back up a little bit, I got baptized, of course. I think I was 14 or 13. I don't even remember. And then I immediately after that, I think it was 6 months after that, I became, an auxiliary pioneer, because you got to do that. And then I went right from that right to regular pioneering, and definitely hated every minute of that. But did my hours and turned them in every man.
Now that brings us up to one of the, in my opinion, one of the more interesting aspects of your story, Aaron, is you're 16 years old, you're at Pioneer School, and I remember the circuit and the district overseers doing, ask us a question, ask us anything. Maybe they don't do that anymore, I don't know. Now they have another new Pioneer book. I don't know if you heard that just last year. New Pioneer book, which was just leaked online, by the way, just recently. But
I'll have to get it.
yeah, for what it's worth, whatever. But the point is, I'm getting to is, so you're 16, you're at Pioneer School, and they're taking questions, and you asked a difficult question. So can you tell me about that?
Yeah, and for me, I didn't really think it was that difficult. My father was in sales, so naturally I kind of evolved around the sales thing. And at the time, I didn't realize that I was really a salesman for free, which if you're a pioneer, that's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are. We're sitting in class. I think, the youngest one there, and they were talking about, arguing other people's religious point of views and how to, go around this or how to circumvent that argument. And one of the things that I had asked, I raised my hand, and it was very innocent to me at the time as a 16-year-old. I said, we are told and taught to have everyone else question their beliefs. How come I'm not allowed to question ours? And for me, coming from a very innocent place, the reaction that I had got was a little bit different than I expected. I was immediately pulled out of class by the circuit overseer, the district overseer, and a couple different elders, and pulled in a back room and was just scalded immediately. Why are you asking those questions? Who have you been talking to? Is there anybody that wanted you to ask this question? Why would you think of such a thing? And I was completely blindsided. And I'm sure, everybody, if you're here watching, you probably have been in a scenario where you're just blindsided and have no idea what to think, what to say. You're stumbling all over yourself. I was very upset, crying a little bit, like I don't know what's so wrong about this, because I truly didn't know. It was a very innocent question. And so they determined that I really did not have an agenda, I suppose. And I got to return to class. And at that moment, I was like, all of a sudden, a very easy question that someone could have just maybe answered turned into not only not an answer, but a very, very stern, argumentative, combative type of an environment that I was not prepared for. And so I said, okay, there's got to be something more to this. And I was so scared. I didn't talk to anybody about it. I didn't talk to my dad about it, my mother, nobody. And it was just kind of in my brain. And from that moment forward, I knew that this probably wasn't for me, and I didn't know what to do about it. So it was very scary at that moment in time. But that is the moment at 16 years old in Pioneer School, probably the farthest you could possibly get from going from 100% in to 100% out in 1 second flat. I mean, it was that's no way. Me being an adult now, I would never snatch up a 16-year-old in any environment and treat that individual like I was treated. I mean, that's just uncalled for on every conceivable front,
Right. So it was almost like you unplugged yourself from the matrix at that point, and the fact that they treated you so harshly and interrogated you, and they interrogated you during, class continued for the other students?
Absolutely. Yep. I was asked to politely come over here. The circuit overseer dismissed himself from the front of the class. Somebody else came up and started doing whatever. And I originally thought, oh, okay, everybody must ask this question, and I'm probably in trouble now for not already knowing the answer to this. That's what I thought going into it. And then we walked in the back room and closed the door. 3 more people come running in, and it was a freight train. And I was just like, what's going on, And it was brutal. It was brutal. I was back for probably an hour.
Wow. Okay, so this is a pivotal moment. This is one of those, I don't know if milestone's the right word, but it's definitely a pivotal point in your, maturity and your view of the world, your life view. And then what was the aftermath? You go home from Pioneer School, and are you disillusioned? Are you depressed? Did you keep pioneering? Because it's always at the end of your first year. Did you keep pioneering, or did you just drop out? Did you talk to your dad about it? What happened?
No, I didn't talk to anybody about it. No, I didn't continue to pioneer. I had gone a couple of months past my year, and kind of made the decision that, and honestly, it wasn't even a depression. It was just kind of like the sail was taken out of, or the wind was taken out of my sail. I really didn't have the desire to do it anymore. And that was not going to be appropriate for my mother at all. So the plan I devised is I wanted to focus more on the theocratic ministry school, do more an active part in that and perhaps work in a ministerial servant, and I didn't feel that, I was contributing enough in service to warrant continuing. And so I went to the elders, and you got to have a, discussion type of thing. It's just not working out. I'm not making enough money. I got to get a different job, whatever, just to get out of it. Mm-hmm. And that was complicated for whatever reason.
It's always complicated stepping down as a servant or a pioneer, and they want to know why and all of that. So when you got out of school, did you stick with the witnesses, or did you, what you talked about, you stopped going to meetings and then they tried to force you to go to the meetings? Is that what happened?
Try to force is not an accurate description. I was kidnapped. They came to my apartment and picked me up, and put me in a vehicle, and took me to the Kingdom Hall. Yes, that happened very physically and very much matter of fact. At 18 years old, I had moved out when my family was on vacation, funny enough. I had gotten into a firefighter academy and, wanted to be a firefighter, trying to build some kind of career. One of the elders I looked up to was a firefighter, so okay, I kind of want to do something like this. There wasn't any witnesses on the fire department, so those people were kind of cool, in a worldly way, right? But none of them were bad, but keep your distance. And so I got involved with the fire department and, became an EMT and all this kind of thing, and moved out. So I thought, okay, I'm going to not go to meetings now, and I'm going to blame, I was on this call, I couldn't get away, whatever. Well, that worked for 1 week, exactly 3 meetings. And then they started calling, at my mother's urging, of course. They started calling, and they started visiting, and they started coming by. And it got to the point where I wouldn't answer my door, and I would sneak out the back to go to work at 5:30 in the morning because somebody was going to be watching me, or at least that's how I felt. So that was a time of really great stress. So then they started basically being there right before the meeting would start, knocking on my door. You need to get ready. You need to take a shower. You're going to the Kingdom Hall. Your mother's waiting for you. Your brothers and sisters are waiting for you. You're the oldest. What kind of example are you setting? And all the rhetoric that goes in, just making you feel about this tall. I don't even know if everybody can see that tall. And so you do it. So I did that for an additional 2 years, and was just absolutely miserable. And I should point out too that through this entire process, my wife now was my friend at the time, and then later became my girlfriend, and that was another part of me trying to kind of say, this is the direction I'm going. Leave me alone. Didn't work.
She wasn't a witness?
No. She worked at Walmart with me in the deli, and I would actually stay 2 to 4 hours after my shift ended to go into the back and help her do dishes so that they couldn't find me, because they would come up to my work at Walmart and look for me there too, because they knew my work schedule. They knew when I was going to be home. And I'm sure all this came from my mother, because she was the one that really just with the thumb, going to the hall and stuff. So so I would hang out for 2 to 4 hours after work and talk to, her about this. And she would just say, well, that's really weird. And talking to a worldly person about it, and we had become friends before I let her into this whole, crazy, the wacky world of Watchtower.
That's what I was about to say. Thank you. Okay, so Aaron, let me ask you a question now.
Yeah.
Are you saying that elders would come and pressure you to come to the Kingdom Hall? Was it elders, or was it your family members?
No, my mother would come once or twice, and my dad would come with her and just kind of look and be quiet and not, whatever. I'm glad you're doing okay. But the elders were really the big pressure point on, you need to come do this. You need to set the example for your youth, siblings, and all this kind of thing. Yes, it really was the elder body in Gregory, Michigan, and you know what? Actually, I need to back up a little bit, actually, because I had actually gone to my mother. I don't remember when, because I was getting so much pressure. I said, I am going to leave the truth if we stay in this congregation. I'm done. I can't handle this anymore. And so we actually changed congregations. We went from the Gregory, Michigan congregation to the Howell, Michigan congregation, which is only about 20 miles because of it. And that was horrible because then I had two bodies of elders that would come and visit me. It was horrendous. It was absolutely horrendous.
Well, you know this is bizarre to me because I've seen and heard stories of elders doing stakeouts, of stalking people, but I have never heard of it to this extent. This is a new one for me. So finally, Aaron, I'm moving to the next part of this story now. So then you said, I'm going to join the military, right? And you just up and did it?
Not exactly. This was the first time that I had talked to my father about, look, I don't want to do this anymore, and I need to make a decision because I'm changing oil on cars. I'm making $7 an hour, can barely pay my rent, and I don't want to do this forever. There's got to be something more to this. And you could, my dad's face, I can't even describe it. My dad was just like, yes, and I said, look, I've been talking to some military recruiters. This was in 2003. So I had watched 9/11 happen. I was living with a friend of mine in a trailer park, a real nice guy, just trying to make my way in the universe. And he had said, you should be good at that, and I thought about it and I thought, you know what? Yeah, maybe I need to, I really felt, never having been a patriot ever, I really felt a sense of patriotism. I wanted to do something about it. I didn't know what that was or even how to, but I wanted to. And so that kind of was in my brain for a year or two. And then I made the decision to do it. And I talked to my dad. I went down to his work and I said, look, I'm joining the Army. I talked to the recruiter. I'm only joining the National Guard. The unit I'm going to has never been deployed, so I'm going to be safe. Oh, yeah, and by the way, I joined truck drivers, so they do convoy stuff, so that should be really safe. The worst possible scenario you can imagine. And what he told me is we walked across the street, sat at the library, there's a park with a bench there, and he said, I'm telling you right now, because I was very concerned about losing my family, losing my mother, my brothers, and my father, right? And he said, I'm going to tell you right now, there's nothing you can do that's ever going to make me walk away or do anything. You're my son, first and foremost, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. I don't care where you go or what you do. I'm going to be right there anytime you call. And he stuck true to that word, to a fault, to an absolute fault. I mean, got disfellowshipped, probably countless arguments with my mother that I don't know about in front of it. And in fact, I found out my grandfather was actually in the Air Force. And I found that out the day that I graduated basic training. My father and my grandfather actually showed up down south to my graduation ceremony out of the blue, and surprised me. And I was the only one there that didn't have a representative, couldn't really explain it as to why. And there's my father and my grandfather, good job.
Bless their hearts. I just love your dad, and I haven't even met him before. I don't even know him, but I really appreciate that. That's so sweet. You see, that is true family love. That is true loyalty. And when the Watchtower imposes this cult personality over us, it's like this ugly mask, and so he was having none of that. His true self was not going to be overpowered by some cult self. And,
no, never.
Yeah, like you said, he stuck to that. Now, obviously, I'm going to assume that the word got out, and then the elders wanted to talk with you. Is that what happened?
Oh, absolutely. I had gotten out, and all through basic training. And here's a comic part, or a comedic part about this whole thing, is during basic training, all these other people were struggling, and it's hard. And I mean, it's hard. It's not a walk in the park by any means. I was excelling. I didn't have a problem. They cut you off from the outside world. Well, it turns out I didn't know anybody in the outside world, so that really didn't matter. My family had already said they weren't going to talk to me, so I had nobody to call anyway. And it was pretty easy. It's like, hey, the drill sergeant tells you to do something, you do it, all is well. And I didn't understand what everybody's problem was. So that is one thing that I will say it kind of prepared me for. But I came back. I had moved into a place, and yeah, and then that knock, came, and I was like, oh, okay. I knew it was coming, but I kind of thought maybe it wouldn't, because you're kind of out doing your thing and whatever. But they showed up and they said, listen, we gotta talk to you. We're gonna set something up. We're gonna come back, and we're gonna tell you when to be there. And I thought, oh, okay, that's fine. I knew it. So they set something up for a couple months, down the road or whatever. And I wasn't going to go. My dad said, you do whatever you think you need to do. And I thought, you know what? I don't, it's not even worth my time. Right. And I thought about that for a long time. And I thought, you know what? No, I'm not going to run and hide in the closet. I've done nothing wrong. I'm an upstanding citizen. I'm a member of the military now. So I decided not only was I going to go, I was going to go in my Class A dress uniform, because I had gotten rid of all my other suits and I didn't have one anyway. So I thought, you know what, let's swing for the fences on this one. Let's grand slam this thing out of the park. So I walked down there, and it was three elders' cars in the parking lot and then mine, and I pulled right up to the front and, went inside, and the look on their faces, I could tell right then that any sense of them trying to talk any kind of sense into me was gone. There was no nothing. But then they started the Judicial Committee meeting, and I didn't have the foresight to record it or even attempt to. But it didn't last very long, and it basically went like this: listen, we need to get you out of the military. That's how they opened. We need to get you out of the situation that you have put yourself into. And I was like, last I checked, this was my choice, but okay, I guess I'm listening because I'm here. And they said, well, we'd like to open with prayer. And I stopped them. I said, before you do that, I would like a certain brother, Brother Wright is his name, to be here. Now, Brother Wright was someone that I had looked up to my entire life. He was a ex-Marine, and he would often speak of being a Marine in his public talks. And I liked his public talks, right? And so I thought, if anybody is going to be here for my Judicial Committee meeting, it should be a former Marine.
Someone that served his country.
You know what? I mean, it would at least, I would have a common ground with somebody. I was looking for an ally, because anybody that's been through those, you don't have an ally in that room. And they told me, no, you don't get to pick. You don't get to pick. This is our decision. This is our whatever. And I said, well, if I don't get to pick, then I don't recognize the authority of this Judicial Committee meeting. So as far as I'm concerned, this is just a meeting with three brothers. And they got irate, jumping up and down, slamming stuff on tables, pointing at me. You don't tell us this, whatever. And I'm trying not to laugh, because mentally I went right back to basic training, getting yelled at by a drill instructor, where you're trying not to laugh, you're going to laugh, and then you're going to do a lot of push-ups, and that was it. So I'm starting to giggle, which only exacerbated the situation. And basically, they just got so frustrated and so mad that, one of the other brothers, who has since passed away, stopped everybody and said, you know what, no, this is, we need to continue, we need to move forward. And then he asked me, do you mind if we open with a prayer? And I said, well, no, that's fine. So they opened with a prayer and did their whole thing and showed me some scriptures. And then, of course, I showed them other scriptures where, I think it was Paul was in the Roman army, and, and stuff like that and whatnot. And they didn't like any of that, because I went to Pioneer School, so I can argue any side of the fence you want. And so then they excused me from the meeting, and after about 5 or 10 minutes, maybe 15, they came out and they said, okay, you can go home now. We're going to talk with you later. And that was it. And I had never been to a Judicial Committee meeting before. So I was unaware that they were, I guess, supposed to notify me of a decision that was made or whatever. That never happened. To this day, as far as I'm concerned, I should be in good standing. I mean, I'm not, but I don't know. I've been in limbo for 12 years. What are we doing? So So
Well,
I walked out, and that was it.
so did you ever did word ever get back to you from somebody? Oh, they announced your name. They said you're no longer a witness, or did you ever hear either way?
Nope. Nope, I never heard. Within weeks after that, I was deployed to Iraq right away, and I was gone for almost 2 years. Um, and so I never officially heard anything from anyone. I got one letter from my sister when I was in Iraq stating that, you had chose the world over Jehovah, and I'm not going to, associate with you anymore, and I hope someday you'll come back to Jehovah, which is the last thing you need to hear when you're in a combat zone a million miles from anyone you ever loved. I mean, it was a disaster. So outside of my sister's letter stating that I had made my decision, no, I was never notified. To this day, I haven't been notified. If they made an announcement, none of my family's told me. But I know my mother doesn't talk to me, my brothers don't talk to me, so all the same stuff.
And I can tell you this: it's funny. Some elders know the policies, they know the elders' letters, they know the elder book, and other elders don't know any of it, or they're just not up on it, because according to Watchtower's own rules, they didn't even have to meet with you. They didn't even have to meet with you at all, because if a person joins a church or they join the military, according to Watchtower policy, you have already disassociated yourself, and they're done. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. You're done. So they didn't even have to meet with you. But it is funny. They wanted to meet with you, I think, because they wanted, like you said, to just try to exert their authority on you. And then that's why they got so frustrated, and you rubbed them the wrong way, because you didn't even, accept their headship over you or whatever.
I said, this committee has no authority, and that was my exact quote. This committee, I do not recognize the authority of it. And they were just like, what? That's never happened before, and I was just like, sorry. And it turns out in the pecking order of the universe, I'm a private in the United States Army, so it pretty much makes me higher rank than you. So, just my little, knowing nothing little brain. They did ask me to write a letter. They did want me to write a letter, and I said, I don't have to write a letter for anything. I don't think I have to. I don't want to. And by the way, my worst subject in school, you can ask my mom, she was my teacher, was penmanship. Not going to do it. So, it just wasn't going to happen.
They wanted you to write a disassociation letter, which you didn't have to do, because they didn't even do their homework and read their little book, because it says it's right in there. It's right in there. I'll try to find the reference and stick it in the description, a video description. But I know for a fact that if you join those two things, they don't even, you don't have to write anything. You've already done it. You've already disassociated.
Through your actions or something like that.
Yeah. Absurd. So now you go and you serve your country, and you come back. You live your life. 10, 12 years goes by. Three
more deployments for a total of 4. I got a job, with the Department of Defense, make decent money, bought a house, got married, had a child, living the dream. I was able to get away young enough to where I didn't have to go through marrying someone in the truth and then that disaster. Oh my goodness, it would have been that. I can't even imagine that. I can't imagine that. I've had friends that have gone through that. A friend of mine who I recently, within the last 2 years, came in contact with through a Craigslist ad selling a car, of all things, found out he worked with my sister-in-law, and then talked to my sister-in-law, and she said, oh, you guys have a lot in common. He used to be one of those Jehovah's too. And I was like, no way. So I called him up after, I sold him a car a few months, prior to that, and I said, listen, we got to get back together. Turns out we have a lot more in common than we both realized. So that was very cool. Found out they had a little group, and then, started talking to him about it, and his wife, he's divorced, and, his wife has got his his child, and he's fighting that whole thing. And I mean, my heart goes out to anybody dealing with that, because I can't imagine it. I'm so very fortunate not to have gone through that, and to get away clean, before anything like that. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah, but it's wild how it all happens. Yeah.
But now there's one thing that you didn't do during that period of time. You had never really learned the truth about the truth. You had never really cleaned that Watchtower stuff out of your mind. In fact,
Nope.
You told me earlier that when the subject of the witnesses would come up, you would defend them, that you would defend the witnesses because, it was just so ingrained in you. And you did that, periodically throughout all that time? And then...
Yeah. For about the first 5 or 6 years, really all the way up until just before I got married, which was 6 years ago. So yeah, the first 5 or 6 years, it would come up through different, I would be at my wife's church or talking with my father-in-law about something, and he would say this or that and the other thing, and I'd say, well, you really don't know what you're talking about. I did it for 20 years, and let me explain it to you. And yeah, I repeatedly found myself defending it and just reverting back to an earlier mental state, without even realizing it a lot of the times. Just correcting people, on my version of facts, and yeah. And then my father-in-law said, you need to do some research about this. You think you're such an expert, you're not.
Good for him.
And he's a very, very knowledgeable man, my father-in-law. Yeah, very. He's a good Catholic and knows his Bible. And he's actually one of the ones that knows his Bible, and I love going toe to toe with him on it. Even though my version that I have in my head is warped, but I can still keep up on the gist of things. So he said, you need to do some research, and this was very recent. This was maybe a year ago, and so I one day was bored and typed in Google Jehovah's Witnesses, and and then I found JW.org, and I was like, wow, this is weird. I was always told not to go to the internet. Now they got their own whole thing. Okay. And then, of course, I don't like to read because I hate it. I went to YouTube and came across you and, everybody else, John Cedars and Kim and Mike and, just everybody that's in this community that I'm like, hey, I'm over here. Somebody talk to me, and just started to realize that, yeah, I am not alone out here. You are not alone out here. Nobody is alone out here that has gone through this. And it was very encouraging to me to see that my story is not unique. I am not the first one to blaze this trail, and that continue to blaze this trail. Yourself and every single other person that has gone through this before me, and that, hopefully sees this and comes after me. Anything I can do. I know you're wide open for anybody's help. It's just, we're here. We get it. We've done it. And it was very cool after all those years, it's been 12, almost 13 years now, for me to finally realize that, okay, this is absolutely a load of crap. Because in my head, I always thought, okay, the end's going to show up at some point. I'm not going to make it, or maybe I'll get that second chance, and to finally realize that, wow, this is a total load of baloney. It's all phony. None of it makes any sense at all when you really strip it away. And it just blew me away. And so I really started, posting comments and trying to get involved, because it's like, yeah, for me personally, I want to get my brothers and sisters back. I want my family back. As anybody does. My second brother down from me just got reinstated, and I was like, oh no. But he was coming over here, and we were hanging out and all this other stuff, and then of course, now he doesn't answer his phone. So it's like, man. But
now, Aaron, did he say to you when he was hanging out with you, did you guys have any heart-to-heart talks about it? Did he say, well, once I get reinstated, I won't be able to talk to you anymore. I'm sorry, but did you have that kind of conversation?
He never spoke a word of it to me, ever. And I was very kind of hands-off, just knowing how he grew up. This whole subject is very taboo. And of course, not that it matters, but I'm I'm the most successful out of all my siblings. So if anybody asks, I'll always send them money or try to help them with anything that I can ever help them with. And I'd always try to sneak one or two things in there. And that always got me blackballed for like another year, right? I'd say, listen, you really need to look into this. My sister especially, she's married to a ministerial servant. They live out in California now, or probably by you somewhere, I don't know. And the last time they stayed at my house, I got into a really heated debate with them, about all this and about how this is crap and all this stuff. Because I got very passionate about it. Because I'm like, listen, you guys need to get out, and that we need to live like normal people, and you need to be in my daughter's life because she's your niece, and you know what I mean? All the a regular person.
Well, I'm surprised that she was willing to stay at your house at all.
Well, she wasn't after that conversation. No. Yeah, that didn't happen. But I a couple times on the phone now, and I've got a very hands-off approach now because I'd rather have some communication than no communication. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I'm just playing the game right now. So and we'll see. Time will tell.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So once again we have another happy ending. There is a few interesting little things that you found out. You came to find out something about a family member that you didn't know. Maybe you could share that.
Yeah, but there's actually two separate scenarios that I'll share with you. One of them, my uncle, who is a big-time elder now, I found out that when his mother passed away, she left over $1 million to the society. And he sued the society to get that money back. And they settled out of court. And that's as far as I got. And that's been some weird family secret that I didn't know about until I started finding out, asking questions. And how I came to that information was somebody else that I am very close with said, oh, yeah, and by the way, this is all crap. And I was like, whoa, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean? I don't want to divulge my position before I find out somebody else's, and they're like, oh yeah, this has been crap from the word go, and I didn't do this or I didn't do that because the end was supposed to come before 75, and I was there for that, and coming to find out that this individual actually knew Ray Franz and was personally handed a copy of his book, and I was just going bonkers, like, you have got to get this out there, and they're very uncomfortable with that right now. But I'm like, listen, this is huge, and where have you been for 15 years of my life, and what's going on? You know what I mean? I'm coming to this great revelation thing, and I'm finding out people all around me are like, oh yeah, we knew this for a while, and we're just waiting for you to wake up and figure it out. And I'm like, you could have told me. We could have saved a lot of time.
Well, and that's one of the ironies is that there's dissenting witnesses. There's undercover or stealth mode witnesses all over the country, all over the world, and they might be sitting right one row over from another undercover brother and not even know. I mean, I was in that situation for almost 2 years, before I got disfellowship for apostasy and gladly stepped into the light. But there's ones that have done it for years. I mean, I went to a funeral for a lady that I respected and that I knew when I was a witness a couple of years ago, and I walked in, to this 300 plus witnesses in the Kingdom Hall where I used to give public talks, and they all knew me, and they just parted, from me. But what was interesting was afterwards in the parking lot, this one brother comes up and shakes my hand, and he knew me from JWSwitness.net, and he knew me from JWStruggle, but the YouTube channel. But he has to play the game. And he goes to the meetings here and there so that he can maintain ties. And some have to do that. Some have to do that for years, and it's sad, but it just blew me away that here I am, I go to this funeral, this witness funeral, and I get recognized, by some undercover J-Dub that I had never met before. So they're all over the place, Aaron. It's just unbelievable. So I just appreciate your story, and appreciate your energy, your enthusiasm. I can tell that you're excited about, finally kind of learning all this stuff and catching up and making some connections with people in the JW community, or I should say ex-JW community. Is there
Right.
any ex-JWs that you've met yet, like in your area, or ones you've made friendships with, or?
No, just the one that happened really by chance before this whole experience with me kicked off.
Mm-hmm.
And I've kept in contact with him. And apparently there's a group, there's a secret group, and I have yet to get over there, but I am definitely putting that at the top of my list. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I want to come across more. And it's funny because I've gotten so involved, online and the YouTube thing and with yourself and everybody that it's driving my wife absolutely insane.
That's right. You told me, didn't your wife say, "Are you watching another one of those videos?"
Oh yeah, she does that all the time. Yeah, she's like, "You do something there, or you're back on YouTube." I'm like, "Wait, there's more to this. I'm not done yet. Hold on, one more video, and I swear I'm gonna go do something. I'm gonna take the trash out. I promise you."
Oh my God. Yeah. I think almost all of us go through that phase. Some of us go through it sooner. Some of us go through it later, where you get obsessed with researching and finding out, TTATT, finding out, oh my God, they're wrong about this, they're wrong about that. They lied to us about this, their history, they covered up, this and this. I mean, it's like all of a sudden, then you really can, can just discard it and realize, it was a sham from day one.
Oh, and it's funny. I am not at the discard level yet. I am still at the, I'm at the let me go see what I can find out phase, and it's like, what is this, and all this stuff. And members of my family are getting me, the new literature and stuff like this, just so that I can proofread it and kind of, honestly, it's almost therapeutic for me. And that sounds probably ridiculous. But coming back, to it and knowing the truth about the truth really is, it's helping me put to rest a lot of things that I just kind of put on a shelf. And you get to think about them and work through them and realize, okay, I am not really the one with the issue. I have an issue with this, and find something to kind of work through it. Baby step your way into whatever, and that's what I'm doing. And it's great. And I love the fact that guys like you are willing to put your stories out there so that guys like me can be like, oh, I'm not alone in this. And that's just such a huge thing. And I'd love to just convey that to anybody that's seeing this, you are not alone out there. Don't get down. Don't get discouraged. And I know that's an impossibility to try to comprehend at whatever moment in time that you might be. But I mean, it gets better, and I'm living proof. You can be a success, and that was the biggest thing for me. They always told me, you're going to do drugs, you're going to end up in jail, you're never going to do anything outside of the truth. And I was just so determined to prove that wrong, and honestly, it wasn't even that hard. I did the military thing, I got a job, I bought a house, I had a family, and I looked around and I'm like, man, I got a boat in the garage. This ain't all that bad, So it's definitely doable. I mean, and yeah, you can do a lot of great things. And you don't have to be scared of it. I want to go to college. That's my next step. I've never gone to college, so I'm going to, because I was never allowed to. So I'm going to go check that box at some point. Just get out there and do it. You don't have to jump in all at once. Take baby steps and watch some videos. Maybe on your phone and then delete the history. That's okay. Whatever you got to do. But yeah, we're all around. I'd love to get in touch with some other people that, are undercover or getting out or felt like me, that, I don't have anybody to talk to. And, oh yeah, by the way, all of my friends or my family now that has never been a Jehovah's Witness doesn't really understand this part of me, And it's just, we're all here. We're here for you. Everybody. So,
Well, I love it. And that's a perfect way to sum up and end a good interview like this, Aaron, is just positivity, look into the future, doing things we haven't done. If you haven't got out there and voted yet, go out and vote. If you haven't put your toe into the holidays yet, give it a try. It's fun. It's enjoyable.
That took a
College,
while.
yeah, all that stuff. It's great. Well, hey, Aaron, I'm going to wrap this up, and I'm going to thank you so much again for this good interview. And no doubt people will want to contact you. If you want, I can put your email address or something in the description so people can contact you. Obviously, watch the comment section of this video because I'm sure there'll be plenty of comments and a lot of attaboys directed at you. So, and that's what it's all about. That's part of the fun of doing one of these, isn't it?
It's very cool. Well, thank you very much for the time, taking it out of your day. I really appreciate it. Yeah, positivity. I'm not one of these Debbie Downer guys. So yeah, it's been great. Thank you so much, Eric, for everything that you do. Yeah, it's been a huge help to me. I can't even stress enough how much it's just helped me. So yeah, and thanks for the opportunity to let me share my little story here with everybody.
Well, it's a good one. It's a good one, and thanks, Aaron. And you take care, and we'll talk again.
All right, absolutely.
The order is rapidly fading, for the times they are a-changing.